Time, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Financial Happy Hour podcast. I am, of course, your amazing, handsome host, Rusty Westfall. And today we are diving into a topic that touches everyone, whether you realize it or not. It's called estate planning. Now, most people think that estate planning is just about wills and legal documents, but there is so much more to it. From avoiding probate, minimizing taxes, and protecting your assets from unnecessary risk to preparing for long-term care and ensuring your legacy lives on for your children and your grandchildren. This conversation is all about demystifying estate planning, right, Joe? And I couldn't think of anyone better to guide us than my guest today, estate planning expert, Mr. Joseph Tu. Joe's has made it his mission to help families protect their wealth, avoid costly mistakes, and make sure that their hard-earned legacy, it doesn't get lost in the system. So without further ado, Joe, welcome to the show. Oh, I like that, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Rusty. Glad to be here. Couldn't come soon enough.
Indeed, indeed. All righty. So let me stop my screen share here. All right. So, Joe, this is your first time on the show, but I think you, as I've explained to you, our little fun tradition here, it is the financial what? Happy hour. Happy hour. So it doesn't have to be alcohol related, but you better have a drink in hand. Now, today, I stopped at Circle K, and there was actually a distributor that was there and highly recommended this drink called Monaco, Monaco. And he said, this is their bestseller. And I said, I've never heard of it. Definitely never had it. And she said, well, the Blue Crush, there was about 6 different flavors, including a watermelon, which I am one of the very few people in this world that's not a fan of watermelon. I know it's hard to believe, especially being from Oklahoma and all. But this is Blue Crush, vodka, tequila, gin, and rum cocktail, 9%. I'm going to give it a whirl. Joe, what are you going to be sipping on, sir?
Well, hey, I'm gonna share so you guys can see this.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
red.
You want to take a wild guess? You probably gonna have a hard time guessing though. It's not what you might.
Sangria? Is it a sangria?
So, fortunately,
Yes.
fortunately, no. Well, no, it's not actually.
No, it's not. Oh, okay.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I've been getting over this really bad cold, so I don't think my doctor would be, happy with me sucking on some alcohol. So I actually have this is a cold pressed beet, carrot, and some other fruit.
It looked beety colored. I
Yeah,
mean,
there you go.
now I was not going to take a stab at saying it was a beet drink related drink, but yeah, it definitely looks beet, dead beet anyway. So, all right, well, hey, pick up your drink. Here's to another successful podcast. Me, our viewers who are watching this live and on the replay get a lot of value from today's show. Cheers, sir. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. All right, so Monaco Blue Velvet, vodka, tequila, gin, and rum cocktail, 9%. I would say it's a thumbs up. Trust me, I've given some
Yep.
thumbs down on this show. All right, let's get into it. Joe, before we get into, and I've got a segue into this, but before we get to the meat potatoes of today's show, if you could just briefly give us a little bit of background on yourself, if you could.
Sure, of course. So I've been in the financial investment world for about, say, 20 years, and it's been great. Formerly born and raised in New York City. So I ended up going to college, both undergrad and grad school, New York University, NYU. They got all my tuition dollars, Rusty. And it's a great experience. Ended up going in the financial sector, worked for some investment banks. And then I finally moved on over to the private equity investment world. So fast forward 13 years ago, with just a bunch of young kids, three kids under 5, decided it was time for a change. So we moved down south. So now we're in the DFW area. So we were down in Texas, and it's probably one of the best decisions we made, right? I mean, much better quality of life for the kids. We kind of jumped in at a good time in the real estate market cycle here, and just at the forefront of the growth that's really exploded right over the past decade. And we really we were surprised to find that people down south are just a lot friendlier. It took a little getting used to, Rusty, but it's been great.
I understand. I understand. So if you see the shirt that I'm wearing, see that says OU. Who
Yep.
does play Auburn tomorrow at home. So But we don't dislike Texas. We just really hate Texas sports, us Okies, that is. So, have you converted to being a Texas sports fan or no, or even a sports fan?
Yeah, look, with four kids, I don't have as much time to focus on sports. So, you know what? I mean, I will tell you that, fun fact, when I first got to Dallas, I was privileged to be invited to one of the luxury boxes over at Jerry's World, watch the Cowboys game, and it's tough to go anywhere else after you've had that experience.
I think I understand. Matter of fact, I read a short little article about a child that was he was 13 years old in a court system. And, his parents continued to beat him to death, and the foster in and out of foster care continued to beat him to death. And he didn't want to live anywhere. Well, the court suggested that he live with the Dallas Cowboys because they just can't seem to beat anybody. All right, enough of that. So, Joseph,
Oh.
you use the tagline demystifying estate planning. What does that mean to you, and why is estate planning often misunderstood?
It's real simple, Rusty. Most people don't even know if they need an estate plan or not, right? And once they find out that they do, they probably don't know who to talk to. And once they find someone to talk to, and they get one, they probably don't know how much it's going to cost. And when they get the plan, if they need to make any changes in the future, a lot of times they don't know where to go to get that changed. Especially if that attorney that helped them with the trust or estate plan is no longer working, or they moved on somewhere else, or they moved out of state. So there are a lot of reasons why estate planning just seems kind of mysterious, right, Rusty? Doesn't it?
I think, and I had another gentleman on the show at the earlier part of this year, where I basically made the statement. I think estate planning is the most under discussed, but one of the most important financial topics that needs to be addressed, and most people don't know anything about it, and I including. I've learned a lot just this year alone on some of the basics of estate planning. So, Joe, I'm going to give you the floor for quite a while. Take the microphone for as long as you want, but if you could give us a crash course, basic education on what all estate planning really involves, what it looks like, whatever it is that you can share or educate us on, it's all yours.
Thank you, Rusty. And before I begin, I just wanted to comment on what you said, and I believe that maybe a lot of people aren't thinking about estate planning is because there's a common belief that estate planning is reserved for the ultra wealthy, right? The
Correct.
multimillionaires or
Yep.
billionaires.
That's a
And that's
misconception.
simply not true. And we're going to talk about it in a bit, but um, if you don't have an estate plan, I mean, it's great if you have one, but if you don't have an estate plan in place, guess what your default estate plan is?
Probate.
Probate court, right? It's the whatever state you live in, Oklahoma,
Yep.
Texas, anywhere you live, that's where you're gonna have to deal with it. And that's, I always ask everyone I run into, hey, was it really your intention to put your loved ones, your family members, through this unnecessary emotional and financial burden?
So before you start getting on a roll here, tell us, why is probate so bad? What is probate court for those who don't know, who are not aware, who are not familiar, who have never gone through that experience? What is probate court, and why is that an avenue that you want to do everything that you possibly can for your family to avoid?
Well, hey, probate court, and we're going to talk about this, a little bit more detail. It is the government's way of making it's an orderly transition of assets from someone that's deceased, right? That's the short answer. Government needs to have a system in place so anyone that passes on, their assets will be distributed, right, equitably as determined by the probate judge. And we'll dig into a little more about kind of what is probate court, and more importantly how you can avoid it.
Okay.
So love about technology here is I get to share my screen here. So just give me one moment. Let me pop this on. Okay. So, um, as part of the estate planning practice that I'm a part of, I can't possibly do this alone, Rusty. There is no way. So we take a holistic approach in terms of what we do. All right. So we're looking at it from not just the legal perspective, which obviously that's what every estate planning firm is focusing on, right? You got to make sure you got the right legal documents in place and you address all the concerns of the client. That's really important, and we take good care of that. We have great attorneys that are part of our team. They're going to make sure that everything is taken care of from a legal perspective. But I don't know about you, Rusty, but I don't like paying taxes. You like paying taxes, Rusty?
I've hated taxes ever since I was 16 years old, and I filled
There
out
you
my
go.
first my tax return on a 1040 EZ, and I thought it was utter and complete BS then, and I'm 51 now, so you do the math on that. No, I despise taxes.
Yeah, no, and again, we tell people, look, there might be a couple different ways of avoiding, paying taxes, but we get to show you how to do it legally. Probably better do it that way, right, Rusty?
Sure. Oh yeah,
Avoid it legally.
absolutely.
And so that's what we can do. And of course, financial asset protection is equally important because I have never met a single person that enjoys losing money. How about you, Rusty? You like losing money?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I
But
know.
but
Exactly.
but I don't even enjoy losing money when I'm at the poker table. I hate that. So no, absolutely not, sir.
And
I don't
and
care if it's a
that's
dollar.
Yep, there you go. And that's why we take a holistic approach, right? We want to make sure that everyone's got the legal wrapper. That's super important. We want to make sure that we're focused on the tax provisions that are available to help someone minimize the taxes they pay today and the future, and for their loved ones as well, right? So we're looking at multi-generational planning as well, and of course, the financial aspect. Well, that's pretty clear. We've got a very, let's say, erratic stock market that's been more like a roller coaster ride, right? This past year, a couple of years. What can be done to really, minimize risk. So what's great about our practice is everyone's, is available to access a complimentary consultation. A lot of attorneys, right? They'll charge you whatever, 250, 300, $400 an hour just to talk to you, to tell you what you need.
Right.
Our approach is very different. We're more than happy to have a conversation because there's no possible way any podcast or any presentation is going to address everyone's needs and concerns. Everyone's in a different situation, right? Everyone's got different needs. So we're going to talk about an estate program where it's an internet-based option. So that way you actually are in control of your estate plan at all times. And you're not at the mercy of, really expensive attorneys that charge you on a hourly basis. We're going to talk more about how the estate plan is really the way to go. And as you see here, it's a full service comprehensive approach that we do, right? We're looking at everything, the legal, tax, and financial strategies. So before we get on into the deep end here, let's have a little fun, right? We're here on happy hour.
100%.
So quiz time. Anyone guess who this is?
Is that Walt Disney
Walter Cronkite.
or Cronkite? Cronkite. I
Cronkite.
said Disney.
Yeah.
Got the Walter
W.
part
You got the
right.
W. You got the Walter. Yeah. That's right.
Disney.
Yep. That one, obviously, you know what that is? Jackie.
Uh, oh yeah, yeah.
Yep. Baseball fans,
I'm not. Mm-mm.
Billy Martin.
Okay, I'll take your word at it.
Okay.
Dude, you didn't tell me I was going to be on Jeopardy. I thought this
Hey,
was the
look, there
financial
you
happy
go.
hour. Financial
Let's see
happy hour Jeopardy.
what-
I know that one.
All right.
MLK, baby.
Okay, you got it. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That's right. This one stumps a couple of people. Leona Helmsley.
Okay, yeah, that was my first guess.
Yep.
Hmm.
Um,
Babe Ruth. All right.
there you go. Babe. That's
Yep.
right. That's right. And of course, this one's a dead giveaway. You look at his name tag.
Sonny and Cher.
Sonny. Yep. And then, of course,
Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn.
Can we do something more current?
What's that? Howard Hughes.
Can we? Howard Hughes. Right there we go.
There you go. Yep. And then finally,
Hey, baby. Thank you very much.
there you go. The king, right? Elvis. So, Rusty, you're probably wondering, hey, we're supposed to be demystifying estate planning. Why are we looking at all these celebrities and all
I'm
these?
sure they have all one thing in common in regards to estate planning and probably the lack of, or the fact that they had all their ducks in a row, one way or the other.
Yep. Yeah. So surprisingly, none of them had any ducks in a row, right? So that's why it's astonishing, actually, right? You've got all these celebrities, people that are really well off, right? And you see here, estate plan, non-planners. We go through this list real quick. You've got Elvis Presley, right? $10 million estate, 7.3 million to probate. Howard Hughes, 2.5 billion. 100 people filed claims contested. That estate was heavily contested. Michael Jackson, $1 billion estate, took 7 years to settle. Abraham Lincoln, no will, no estate plan at all. And Dr. MLK, no will, no trust. So, shocking as it may, this is actually fairly common, even among the people that really do need an estate plan, right? And it would be obvious. So, what are we going to talk about today? Hey, what happens if there's no legacy in place? How do we talk, situations that can lead to emotional and tragic results and how to prepare for them? How do you write the ultimate love note to your family? And of course, right, we talked about the taxes. How do we develop these tax-free income streams? And of course, for those older folks that are already taking Social Security, a lot of people don't know this, Rusty. Social Security income on its own actually is not taxable. Did you know that?
Correct.
So it's really all the other income that piles on, right? And we'll talk about ways in which, we can look at helping you plan for the future so you can avoid having all this additional income come in and that makes your Social Security income taxable. Does that make sense? If you have other income that you have to
Correct.
report, right? So moving on here. Before we do, actually, our lawyers right there always big into full disclosure. So again, all of the different hypothetical situations that we're talking about, this is not technically legal advice, but we're providing information so that everyone can just get a better understanding of what they may or may not need, and we can definitely as you do a consultation connect you with all the professionals that will provide you with specific advice based on your situation. All right, so just need to talk about that real quick. All right, so common questions here. Hey, what's better, a will or a trust, right? Legacy planning. How do we keep the kids and grandkids from blowing the inheritance? And of course, taxes. How do we just keep Uncle Sam out of our pockets,
I know
right?
you'll get to this in just a moment. That how do I keep my kids and my grandchildren from blowing the inheritance? How often does that come up with your being a concern of your clients?
Very common.
Is it
We have clients who have done very well and have adult children who they don't necessarily.
think are the
I mean,
most
and again,
responsible?
sometimes, yeah. I mean, look, these kids coming out of school, maybe they're making, I don't know, 60, 70, $80,000 a year, right? Imagine if you just dumped half a million, $1 million in front of them.
Right.
They're going to be, some of them might be going to the local Ferrari dealer, Porsche dealer, right? And just, they don't know what to do with it. So it's actually a pretty legitimate concern. Um, how do I keep our loved ones from, you want to help them out, but you don't want to, spoil them, right?
A
You don't want.
legitimate concern, absolutely. But how many people, when they start working with you, think of something like that? That it's one of their concerns that they bring to the table versus you addressing it with them, they address it with you. I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, it's kind of half and half. There are some that already know that they have an issue, but then there are those clients where when we bring it up, hey, have you thought about how you want to make the distribution? And that it's the question that triggers maybe I should figure out a way to spread it out.
Yeah. I didn't think about that. One of those situations. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. How can we
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah. And again, it's all part of that process, right? As we ask the right questions, then that starts opening up other doors that they may not even realize they have a concern until you ask them. And that's what we do, right, Rusty? Our job is to help our clients think about scenarios, think about situations where they may not want to think about or they just haven't thought about, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So, all right. So moving on here, what is probate court, right? You had asked this. Well, as you see here, it is really the first step of a legal process. It's got to resolve all the claims, on the estate, and then making sure that the deceased, all their assets, including their property, are distributed. If they have a will, fine. If they don't, probate court deals with that as well. So here in Texas, here's the challenge here. Most states, it's anywhere from $25,000 to $100,000, Rusty. So the threshold is so low that, going to your point earlier, this really should impact just about everyone right, that's watching this.
Right.
If you own a home, I mean, who has a home that's not worth $75,000, right? If you own a
Right.
couple vehicles, that's going to put you there. And
Yep.
so that's the reason why, unless, and I tell people, unless you figured out a way to not, to be able to avoid dying, right? You're going to need an estate plan because if you don't put one together, well, hey, then your state government, the probate court, they're going to figure it out for you.
Now it does say there includes cash, stocks, and bonds. If you could go back real quick,
Yep.
personal belongings and property that doesn't have survivorship. So, in addition to cash, stocks, and bonds, personal belongings and property that doesn't have survivorship, you're talking about like cars and boats and anything of real substantial value. Correct? Would be considered a part of that net worth, that threshold, if you will.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, I'll tell you a perfect story. I was talking just someone I met recently, and they're telling me about their probate story and how they thought that they could avoid probate, but then all of a sudden there's another asset that popped up, and that put them over the threshold. And it's wild sometimes, in terms of and I think, and if I recall, this was a life insurance policy that didn't have the right beneficiary. I think the beneficiary had already passed on or was no longer valid. So there you go, right? Uh, People
And
find
that
things
went to the
later on.
estate, and therefore it went to the estate
That
because it.
therefore went to state, and therefore it kind of pushed it up above the threshold. So
Yep.
we'll talk
Wow.
about that in a minute in terms of using beneficiary designations for your bank accounts, life insurance policies, and everything else.
Okay.
Some reasons why you might want to reconsider that. So before we do that, just want to again dig in a little more on these on probate court and why you want to avoid it. As you see here, it starts adding up. These are all the different probate fees, that are relevant in Texas, but all the states are going to have something similar, right? So it's going to be kind of plus or minus. Um, the cost will vary, but what won't vary is the fact that it's going to be a time sink. This isn't something like you go in and you think it's bad to go get your driver's license renewed, right? It only takes you a couple hours. This is probate court. 6, 9 months, sometimes 12 months or even longer, especially if you have different family members or other acquaintances contesting the estate.
And Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the caveat behind that 6 to 12 month, if not longer, process is that somebody still has to be financially responsible for the estate, more or less, like paying the taxes, the utilities, the things, the upkeep of the property. If there's a mortgage payment, continue to pay that mortgage
Yes.
payment. They're still responsible. And if they don't continue to pay that until the estate is settled, then they could possibly lose that until it's settled. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. So um, that just creates another layer of complexity, right? If you have a couple of adult surviving children, and well, who pays for it, and then you count for, it's just it can get pretty messy, right? And again, it could be a cash flow issue, right? I mean, there might be assets available, but if it's tied up under probate, then someone else is going to have to come out of pocket, right, to meet those needs.
And
So
that's just a cash flow problem is that, mom and dad might have been okay, but until that estate is settled, the children, if there's one or maybe a handful of them, but they don't have the income that mom and dad did, right? Or they're not as successful. They have so much debt that they can't afford the house payment and the car that's 80% paid off, but there's still a car note attached to it. Somebody has to pay that. Somebody still has to keep the lights on. Somebody still has to continue to pay the taxes. Where is it going to come from? And if it doesn't come from anywhere, then you lose it all entirely. And so that's a large part of what I understand is why you can't afford not to have proper estate planning and have the right trust fund set up. I'm not trying to steal your thunder. I'm just trying to share my thoughts as you're covering
oh
certain
yeah, no,
aspects of this.
definitely. Look, it can be a slippery slope and it can be problematic, right? Just depending on the situation. This is why, everyone needs to have their plan in place. So again, obviously, where would you prefer your dollars to go, right? Paying towards your local state or your family and your loved ones. Um, this is exactly, and it's funny, you just mentioned that, like in Texas, like you said, the house payment, right? Monthly bills. There you go. You jumped the gun, right, Rusty?
I sure did. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. I figured I'll let you share your thoughts. And that's exactly what, I was going to talk about, the fact that, look, there are, a lot of different, monthly bills that need to be paid. Now, here's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize. Once all your private financial assets that you've worked hard for your entire life gets put into probate court, it goes into the court docket. It is public record. And, how do you feel about strangers finding out what assets you have, and what's to stop them from maybe jumping in and trying to make a claim on some sort?
What does that mean exactly? Them jumping in to try to make a claim of some
Well,
sort. Can you elaborate on
I
that?
don't know. Let's say, again, I'm making this stuff up, right? Just hypothetical. Let's say there's some general contractor that says that, hey, he did some work for this deceased individual and he never got paid, and right, he wants to put a claim on the estate.
Gotcha.
Who's to say he was there or not there, right? I mean, again, it could be anything. It really could.
No,
It's just
that was a great example. I've never thought about that.
yeah, no, and again, yeah, they're just so many different potential, scenarios where you've got um just people that are not of the right mindset that are going to go in and maybe cause some problems, right? It's just um uh exposure. Do you really want to expose your private financial assets, family assets, to the public? Let's talk about national projections over the next 20 years. Believe it or not, 90 million families are going to be impacted by probate, Rusty.
It's a
Like,
lot.
going back to what you're saying, it's really, one of two reasons that people don't um, have that people don't avoid probate, which can be avoided. $2 billion spent. That's a lot of money. So why do people go through probate? Typically, I say it's for one of two reasons. Either they just don't know, right? Lack of knowledge. A lot of people don't know what they don't know. Some people, think that they may have a plan set and they don't have the right pieces of the puzzle, right? So it's really lack of education, lack of knowledge. Now, for everyone that's watching this, now that you are getting the knowledge, why might you and your family still go through probate? Well, hey, then that one's really simple. Procrastination, human nature, right, Rusty? How
Hmm.
many times have
Yep.
you just put things off? I can't tell you how many times we work with clients that have said, literally, we've been thinking about this for years and years and years, and we just haven't done anything about it, right? It's kind of like that dentist appointment that just, people know they got to go, but they just, right? It's hard to go, or it's not something that they're looking forward to.
Right.
Maybe they don't know where to go. They don't know who to see. They don't know, it's just, there are a lot of reasons why. So,
Right.
um, now that you know, guys, don't procrastinate. Don't put it off, because tomorrow's not promised us, right? We have today to plan for tomorrow. Um, all right, so we're gonna have a little quiz time here again. What do you think is the percentage of Americans that have a will? Rusty, you want to take a guess?
Will I want to throw a dart at 18%.
It's actually 40%. So a little bit
Okay.
higher.
I was
Okay,
trying
so
to be
a
ultra
little less than half.
conservative on that. Okay.
Yep, yep, yep.
All
And then
right.
what do
Well, hey, I'm gonna give America an applause
you?
on that one. It's higher than I thought. Good
And what
deal.
about the percentage of Americans who have a trust?
Okay, so I'm going to go card sharks. Higher or lower? Higher or lower? I'm going to go way lower than 10%. I'm going to stick with that 8. So let's stick with 8 instead of 18.
Eight.
Let's go with
Okay.
8%.
All right. So again, you're consistently just about half of actual. 17.
Uh, all right, so 17%.
Yeah.
Got it.
So what does that mean, Rusty? That means every 10 people that we talk to, 8 of them don't have their plans in place.
Yep.
Is that something? All right. So we're going to talk about it. Living will versus living trust, right? Since, there are more Americans that have wills and trusts. Does living will avoid probate?
No.
I think. Definitely not. Right. Some people think they do, though. That's part of the issue, right? Lack of knowledge, right? We're talking about
Correct.
that. Some people say, "Oh, I got my will. It's gonna go. My ass is gonna go here, here, and there, and I'm all set." No, it actually does not. If you exceed your probate threshold for your state, everything goes to probate court. So will does not avoid probate. Now, does a living trust avoid probate?
Absolutely.
Maybe. It's not absolutely. So here's something that most people don't know. Only a fully funded living trust will avoid probate. Okay, so I can't tell you how many times, Rusty, that we'll talk to a client. They spent thousands of dollars with an attorney, put together a nice big fat binder of documents, legal documents, and the attorney told them, hey, here is your living trust. Now you need to go fund the trust. Please make sure you put all your assets and assign them to the trust. And again, human nature, procrastination, right? Or maybe lack of knowledge. They weren't clear on the instructions. Either way, if the living trust is not funded, you still go into probate. And that happens, Rusty. So
So let me
sometimes
let me
you get
let me back.
confused.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna I'm
yeah.
gonna
So
stop you real quick. Let's go backwards a little bit. So when you say fully funded, you're talking about creating the trust, but actually putting the assets in the trust. Is that what you mean by
that is
funded?
correct.
Okay,
The
so
best way,
yeah,
yeah,
and I know that, and I've heard of that. And actually, I don't remember the statistic, Joe, but I do recall Keith Forrester had a when we were down in Texas, you and I, not too long
yep.
ago, how he was talking about the fact that you would be absolutely surprised how many people create a trust, but they don't put anything in it.
It's
And
like
I'm just like,
that.
that made no sense to me. I've never heard of that until
Yep,
here recently, but you just reminded me of that.
yep.
And I'm just like, why would you go through all this trouble and pay the expense to create one, but then you fail to put anything in it?
Because sometimes it's not that easy, Rusty. Got to get a deed title transfer for the properties, right? The vehicles, you name it. It's work. And, a lot of times people just, yeah, again, they put it off and they want to do it. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next week. And they just forget about it. Um, Now, the best way for me to explain how to fund a trust is real simple. It's pretend you have a nice, big, shiny safe you just bought. What good is it unless you start putting all your cash, jewelry, and other valuables inside the
Right.
safe, right?
Yeah,
You got to
none.
put it inside. You got to assign the assets to the trust. Now, we're going to talk about a much easier way of getting that done where we can actually help clients fund their trust in like an hour. Okay. So there's a very big difference in terms of the newer way of doing things.
So
Um,
I think for most Americans or most people who are watching the show, when we use the word fund, we actually mean log or key in, enter in,
yep.
um,
Assign. Yep.
assign
Uh-huh.
the
Yep.
asset.
Yep. Yep. So there are two types of trusts that are out there. Okay. There's what I call the passive traditional book trust. You got to hire an attorney. They put that nice thick binder together. And then there's a digital trust. It puts you in control. That allows you to actually get your trust funded right that same day. So what scenarios can a living trust provide more protection than a living will? So let's talk about a couple of these scenarios real quick. Um, so I mean, unfortunately, this happens, right? We've driven around and we've seen accidents. Couples in a car accident. Um, so let's say mom and dad, uh, they're in the hospital, and you've got Tom there with Mary and Jane, and they're went to the hospital, and they go to the hospital, and they don't know who they are, right? I mean, a lot of times, unless you got the proper documentation in place, it's hard to even get information on what's going on, because you don't have the documents in place. Is that something that be of a concern? Obviously, right? We got to make sure that we've got all these medical directives and we've got all these documents that allow someone to, make decisions on behalf of someone that's incapacitated. Um, we have another scenario here where let's say we've got grandma, grandpa, right? They're going on vacation with their uh, favorite son, Bob, and unfortunately, tragic car wreck. Bob's gone, he's driving, and unfortunately, um, both both grandparents passed away at the same time. Now, no one knows who passed away first, so guess what? You got to go through probate. Okay. Now, here's the concern with this situation. Um, Bob dies along with grandma and grandpa. Bob has two sisters. Okay, so let's say it's Jane and Mary are his sisters, and they're all named as beneficiaries. Most people have beneficiaries named on bank accounts, right, on their life insurance policies, and that's typically what an advisor or agent will tell you to do, right, Rusty? Is that pretty common? Like they'll say, hey,
Absolutely. Hmm.
name your, name your kids, name your wife as the primary beneficiary and name your kids as the contingent. Happens all the time. Well, in a situation like this, because Bob died along with his parents, now he's no longer in the picture. So what does that mean? The two surviving beneficiaries, his two sisters, are actually going to get the proceeds of the life insurance policy. Is that what you intended? Did you intend to have your daughter-in-law and your two grandchildren be disinherited
Right.
through the beneficiary
Absolutely
designation?
not. Nope.
Definitely not. No one would want that, right? But again, it's these situations where beneficiary designations really aren't the best way to really assign, how you leave your distributions for life insurance policy or even bank accounts payable on death, right? And so I always ask clients, hey, did your advisor not mention to you because he didn't know about it or he didn't care to tell you, right? Which way is okay? You gotta have a trust in place.
And the reality of it is, Joe, is nobody ever thinks it's going to, something like that, a scenario like that is going to happen to them. But you never, I mean, this is life. I call it the
Yeah.
game of life. You never know when the good Lord's going to call us home and how it's going to happen and how many other people are going to be
Yeah.
involved simultaneous with you. So that's where, and all we're talking about is people plan, but they don't plan to fail. They just simply fail to plan, or they fail to plan the proper way. And a lot of people that I come across are what I call DIY. They try to do it themselves instead of hire an expert, somebody who is a subject matter expert in their respective field. It's kind of the client's best interest to make sure that a person's wants, their needs, and their goals, what's important to them, are going to be sought out in the event of their passing.
Yeah. So would this be a concern? Obviously. Joint tenancy. This is very common as well. We see this a lot. You've got your favorite daughter that you want to leave your house to, right? So grandparents put their adult daughter on either the deed to the home or it could be joint tenancy of a bank account or investment account, right? It could be anything, right? So, well, what's the issue? Well, so in this case, parent puts a child in the house in a bank account, and let's say the knucklehead son-in-law decides that he's done, right? I mean, what's the divorce rate in this country?
Is
Pretty
it
high,
like 50%?
right? Yeah, about half, right? 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So unlike that other scenario, this is actually something that, could happen. So you got the knucklehead son-in-law you probably didn't like a lot anyway. He decides to leave. And now, as part of the divorce proceedings, guess what? These divorce attorneys, they look at all the different assets and they see that the daughter's name is on the house. Guess what? Marital property. They're going to make a claim. And now, you're going to have to come up with a couple $100,000, maybe from the retirement account that you were planning to use to take your family on a vacation. And now you've got to pay the son-in-law, right, to kind of buy him out of his half of the property. Is that what you intended?
I'm sure
Probably
most people say no. Mm-hmm.
not. Lawsuit. Um, Look, whenever someone gets in a lawsuit and they're going after assets, if you have a joint tenancy and your adult child is on there as co-owner, well, guess what? The creditors can come after you.
Right.
And that's why you got to be really careful with using joint tenancy as a way of just passing that along um, to the next
I've been
generation.
hearing this a lot this year. Buy everything, own nothing.
Bankruptcy, same thing. Let's say your daughter, during COVID, owned a flower shop, and COVID came and they shut it down. Couldn't send flowers anywhere. Couldn't no events happening. File for bankruptcy, and now they can come after all the remaining assets, right, including anything that your adult child is tied to, right, on your accounts. Would that be a concern? Obviously. Um, IRA beneficiary trusts, these are very powerful because they allow you to do three things. We talked about, right, the lawsuit, divorce. But the best thing about an IRA beneficiary trust that you use as part of the estate plan is you could be down 6 foot under, you're gone, but it's almost like you're still able to reach out from underneath the ground and still decide how all your assets get distributed
Hmm.
on a monthly, on an annual basis, right? And that's what we talked about. How do we
Right.
uh, help you to to avoid kids or grandkids blowing the inheritance? Well, here's what we
Right.
can do. Let's talk about scenario where, you know, let's say your husband's in a coma, incapacitated, and he's a wage earner, right? He probably had a pretty substantial 401k saved up. It's either in a 401k account or maybe he moved it over to an IRA. Doesn't really matter. What does the I in IRA stand for?
Internal
Individual.
or individual. I'm sorry. I'm thinking
Yep,
IRS.
yep, yep.
I'm having a moment here.
No,
Let
hey,
me
hey,
let me
have
lay
another.
off the
Hey,
Monaco.
yeah. So I,
I
an
think
individual,
yeah,
there's
individual.
only only Frank is listed on the account, right? His wife, Jane, she's listed as a beneficiary. Okay. And so when he's in the hospital, he's in a coma, he's struggling, and maybe they got to pay some more bills and they just, need to start, accessing some of the funds.
Right.
What if there's no document in place? Will the financial institution just give her the money because she's the spouse? Remember, she's a beneficiary. He hasn't died yet.
Correct.
So she can't access the funds.
Right.
Got to have the proper documents in place.
I'm glad Brian appreciated my individual versus internal. He laughed at that. I see you, Brian. I got you. I got you.
So here's something that's also really important. A lot of grandparents, they got their adult children, they turn 18, and then, God forbid, they get into some type of accident or, they end up in a hospital. Um, unless you have the proper documentation in place, once your child's over 18, you have no right in terms of making decisions on their behalf.
Right.
They actually need to have medical directives in place. And so this is why this is just something that's very important for everyone to know that, in the event, and I always ask this question to our clients, in the event that you are incapacitated, who do you have in writing to make medical decisions on your behalf?
I'm sure I would like to know what the stat is below the age of 70. I'll throw the dart at 70. I would think hardly, I mean, it like 2 or 3% would be my guess, but I wouldn't hardly think anybody would have something like that in writing.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll talk about how if you have it in a digital estate plan, that's actually a lot more powerful than if you just had it in writing on a piece of paper. Okay, so proper estate planning can address all of these scenarios. So here's the estate plan. Company's been around for over 4 decades. Extremely, I mean, not a single complaint.
What company is this, Joe?
This is Integrated Trust System. So this is our kind of estate planning partner, right? That's
Okay,
got
so that
all
is the
the
name of the company.
trust
Gotcha.
specialists, licensed attorneys, right? So even though it's a digital estate plan, this is not like you going on a random website and just playing DIY, do it yourself, right? Fill in the blanks, cross our fingers, hope it works, right? No, you're going to be guided every step of the way. So why do we like this system? Well, first of all, they are based in Nevada. So you're going to get a trust that's based in Nevada. And you're wondering, well, why Nevada? Well, Nevada's going to be they have the absolute strong, they're the highest rate in terms of the strongest trust laws in the US and also the most flexible. And
Really?
you're wondering, well, hey, if you live in Oklahoma, I live in Texas, how in the world are we going to get a trust that's based in a whole different state? It's called jurisdictional shopping. What state is Microsoft located?
Couldn't tell you.
Washington, Coca-Cola, Georgia.
There we
So
go.
Boeing, Washington. So these are all, they're all located in different states, but where are they all incorporated, Rusty?
Probably Nevada.
No, they're actually incorporated in Delaware because
Delaware. Yeah, that was my next guess.
Delaware's that's most favorable, incorporation laws, right? So you can be incorporated in one state, but run your business and be based out of another state. It's no
Right.
different with jurisdictional shopping. You can
Okay.
go buy property in Texas, Florida, right? Colorado, you name it, right? That's jurisdictional shopping. You're not limited to to your one state. So the way within the state plan, it's a one-time fee. And again, depends on kind of what your situation is. But I will tell you that regardless of what your situation is, when you compare it against hiring attorneys, it's going to be a lot less, right? Because it's a lot more efficient and it's going to be a lot more powerful. Here's the other thing about using a passive paper trust versus an active digital trust. Um, an attorney can't actually tell you how much it's going to cost you. They can only tell you the initial setup fee, right? The only way an attorney can tell you how much it's going to cost throughout your lifetime is you'd have to tell them how many children you're going to have, how many grandchildren you're going to have, how many marriages or divorces, right? How many homes you're going to buy, how many properties you're going to sell. Because every time you have one of those, anytime you have a life event like that, you actually have to update your estate plan. Now, when you go back to the attorney, are they going to work for free?
Right. Nope.
Definitely not, right? So it ends up adding up a lot more when you do the traditional passive book trust. We've had clients that had a book trust for, let's say, a decade, and they're in it maybe $15,000, $20,000, right? That's pretty significant.
Oh yeah.
With the integrated trust system, the estate plan, like we mentioned earlier, full funding of your trust, the assignment of all your assets, the property title transfer, everything is done electronically. So that can actually get done typically within the hour. Um, Annual access fee, right, to have the ability to make changes to your trust. And also, you'll have access to Notepad, so you'll be able to talk to trust specialists, licensed attorneys, and you have any question about, hey, I'm thinking about doing this and doing that, they'll be able to provide you with that type of advice. It's all included, right? $95. So Notepad system, unlimited changes, and then that virtual medical ID card. That's what I was referring to earlier. You're incapacitated, and let's say you drive your car into a ditch, you're unconscious, first responders, they're trained to look in your wallet or purse, right? And they'll find your ID card and they'll log into your digital trust. It's going to show them your family physician, all the allergies to medications you might have. It's going to have your emergency contact info, but most importantly, it's going to have your medical directives. You're going to tell them exactly how you want to be treated, and they have to follow that.
Very
So we
cool.
always ask people, hey, do you really want life and death decisions to be made by a stranger in an ER? So how are they going to find? I mean, who do they know? Or how are they even going to, find your family members in time? Where are they
Right.
going to virtual medical ID card? That's a game changer. Um, Ultimate love note to your family because it is digital. This is pretty cool, Rusty. You can record and save as many videos, personal videos, messages that you want to share with your loved ones. I actually had one client come in and he said, you know what? I'm going to make my family members, they're going to have to earn their inheritance. I'm going to create a scavenger hunt. They're going to have to go through.
He made a game out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So, hey, look, it's up to you. Look, it's great with technology. And then, of course, you could use a third-party trustee based in Nevada to uh, manage and handle the trust. So that's how that estate plan works. Legacy planning, right? You want to spend a couple of minutes on this. Um, I know you had mentioned earlier, most people don't realize that based on a Harvard study here, over two-thirds of seniors, older adults, are going to require long-term care services, right?
Right.
Because people are living longer, Rusty. Got all this modern medical technology, right? People are living longer. And as such, the likelihood that you need some type of long-term care, and it could be anything, it could be assisted living,
Sure.
it could be a nursing home, or it could be something as simple as home health aid care. Some people don't want to go to a facility. I don't blame them, right? But who's going to pay for all that? Do you want to dig into your savings or do you prefer to use someone else's money? Well,
Well, we preach and teach about the whole would you rather use your money or somebody else's money? So I'm going to defer
yep.
to the latter. I'd rather use somebody else's money.
Oh, 100%. And, long-term care is unfortunately something that most people don't have. And I could kind of see why right now, Rusty, because the rates keep on going higher and higher. And because, right, if you look at the population trend, right, it's unsustainable. So unfortunately, the traditional long-term care programs, they're really not appropriate for most of the general population, right? It just either doesn't fit the budget or doesn't really fit the coverage needs. Um, Here's the good news, and I tell people this all the time. Even if people are, tend to be older and they might be on the cusp of even being able to qualify for some of these programs that we have available for, people that are older. You don't know, right? I mean, there are some carriers that do work. I'm part of a national health and financial brokerage. We have access to over 50 different carriers, so these are all A-rated carriers. So the first thing I'll say is there are some plans where you don't necessarily have to purchase a long-term care. They're living benefits programs, right, that are tied to life insurance policies where you could access care that way. Now, there are also other programs available, what I call backdoor long-term care programs that don't even require any health underwriting. And again, it just depends on everyone's situation to see if they may or may not qualify. We're more than happy to, talk to everyone to see if that might work. But the takeaway here is there are opportunities for someone to access additional source of funding for future long-term care if they plan today, just again, depending on what assets they have and what we have to work with.
Yeah,
So
the
that's
most important part of what you're talking about here is 7 out of 10 people in their life is going to need assistance in their older years of living with long-term care services. And so at the end of the day, it's going to have a cost to it. And what you're sharing are options, there are alternatives to how you can fund for that long-term care versus the traditional way of buying a long-term care insurance policy. Is that correct?
It's 100% correct. And there are options. Again, you don't know what you don't know, and that's why it's always good to find out and talk. Um, we talked about inheritance, right? You have a sum of money now, you're not spending it all. Maybe you're sitting on half a million, million, or even more, and you want to eventually give it to your kids and grandkids, right? Help them out with a better life. But at the same time, you don't want to spoil them and you don't want them to just blow it all, right? Just
Right.
to go out there to the Porsche dealership and, just buy something that is not
Oh,
really
why not, Joe? Man, why
highest
you
and
got to
best
be
use
so
of. Hey,
boring?
there you go. There you
Give me a
go. Yep.
Lambo. I want a Lambo. Let's go.
There you go. So, um, how are some ways in which we can help everyone, um, put together a program to help out the next generation? So there are what we call these index-based programs, right? Can you see this, right? The green
I
line, the
sure
red
can.
line. So
Mhm.
obviously, I'm sure you've seen charts like this before, Rusty. If I ask anyone in any room which line would they prefer, their retirement funds or their funds that they're going to grow in the future,
I want the one on
everyone,
top.
everyone wants the one on top, right? And again, it's because that looks a lot better. Now, fortunately, a lot of people that have the IRAs or 401k accounts or any kind of assets that are still in the stock market, that's the red line. That's the S&P. And, we're not fans of the S&P because honestly, it's unpredictable, right? So if you're still in a position where you are still preparing for retirement, well, there are actually programs right now that are available where you can take whatever you have in an IRA or 401k or some type of qualified account and you feel like you're stuck because you just have to cross your fingers and hope for the best. There are ways in which you could potentially qualify and move your money over to the green line. So let's talk about that green line because that green line is what everyone is curious about, right? It almost looks too good to be true. How does that work? Well, that green line represents index-based programs that are sponsored by these multi-billion dollar life insurance companies. And Rusty, as you know, life insurance companies, they are the most conservative financial firms out there, right?
Sure.
They have to be. They can't afford to lose a single dollar. If you have a life insurance policy, let's say Rusty, and you go out on the street, you cross the street, and some car runs you down, and you're dead, and you have a life insurance policy, what does the life insurance company have to do? They got to pay, right, Rusty?
Well, yeah, they're going to investigate first, then they're going to pay.
Yeah, but
Sure.
they got to pay, right? They got
You
to
got to
pay right
pay.
away. And there's no way around that. So life insurance companies, they have to be very careful where they're putting their money, right? That's where we look at that safe growth box. Any place you put your money, it can only move in one of three places. It can either go up, stay the same, or go down. So these life insurance companies have figured out a way to get rid of that down arrow. We call that zero is your hero. So that way, whatever assets they have are going to stay the same where they grow. And that's how you get that green line.
Right.
All right. And as you see, the green line never goes down because they've gotten rid of that down arrow. Now, in the years where the market dropped, hey, even if you're not making anything, hey, zero is your hero, right? That's a powerful tool because eventually it's going to go up. Now, one thing that people need to know is with these index-based programs, they are backward looking. So they're going to look and see how the index performed last year. And if it went up 7%, 9%, 12%, that's how much interest they credit your account. So that's why the green line always follows the red line up, but never on the way down because zero is your hero. When we know eventually the market bounces back, right, Rusty? That's one thing that we know since the beginning of the stock market. It
And what's
never
even
goes
more
in
and what's
direction
even
forever.
more important with this chart is the fact that understanding the power of compounding. And anytime that you have a loss, you need a higher gain just to get back to where you started at. And so when the market goes down, you'll never lose money, and when the market rebounds, you pick up where you left off versus starting
Yeah.
at a much lower rate.
All the time that you spend playing catch up. So in this case, right, from 2000 to 2000, let's say 12 years, you've lost that 12 years of growth. And you never get it back. And you know how people say, well, hey, if you're young, that's fine. You have plenty of years. No, it's actually not fine because who's going to give me my 12 years of growth back that I
Yeah, I
lost?
was gonna say it's not. I would not be okay with that
Yeah,
at all.
yeah, yeah. No, and again,
Mm.
so this is why this chart is so powerful because it shows you how you can actually put your money in a much better place where you can grow it and can compound. So taking this concept of that kind of green line index-based program, how do we apply it to estate planning? Well, here's a common example. Okay, we see this all the time. You got an adult child, right? You can either put your money wherever it is on a red line or in a bank account, earning 2 or 3% interest, or you can start by getting them one of these index-based programs where at $500 a month, it's $6,000 a year, right? And then day one, they'll actually because it's a life insurance company, they're going to provide a death benefit and living benefits. Now, we didn't talk a lot about living benefits. It's something that really everyone needs because we just don't know. I mean, heart attack, stroke, cancer, right? I mean, how many people do we know that have been impacted by cancer? Just about everyone knows a couple people. Um,
And we'll probably have to cover a lot of this stuff in our next have if you
yeah,
accept the invitation to return back to the show to where we can pick up where we left off because that is one of the most important topics of any financial planning or
sure.
the living benefits and building a financial plan not on sand but on solid ground. And it starts with ensuring and protecting yourself and your ability to earn income, and it starts with living benefits.
And
So I understand all that you're saying. So if we could
sure.
take what we
Yeah.
got
So
wrapped
yeah,
up
we'll
and
just yeah, again, we'll just kind of get to so again, death benefit, living benefits, you be gifting that to your adult child, right? Right now, day one. Okay. So if let's say you were to put that away for 20 years for them, that's $120,000, right? Um, look at the total future projected tax-free income. You're looking at almost $500,000
right.
by just taking 120,000 that you probably wouldn't have spent anyway, right? But now you're starting to, build this plan for your children, adult children, so that way they're going to be protected today and they'll have a nice tax-free nest egg tomorrow. Um, Annual income, if they wanted to take it out annually, be about $20,000, like 19, 20,000. And just again, simple math, if you look at the yield, you're helping them achieve a 16% return on what's been contributed for 20 years.
Amazing.
Now, let's say for the grandchildren, right? Everyone loves their grandchildren. They want to help them out. 10-year-old, start them off early, $350 a month. Again, $500,000 death benefit. That's going to increase over time. At 10 years old, it's $500,000. By the time they're 30 or 40 years old, it's going to be over $1 million, right? So that actually grows because they're so young. It continues to grow with the account. $84,000 total over 20 years. Can you guess how much that tax-free income is, Rusty? If you want to just take a wild guess.
Tax-free income at the age of what?
At the age of, let's say, 65.
65. I want to say somewhere around 80,000 a year.
So 3.7 million, 150,000 a year. And again, the yield is almost not calculable. It doesn't even make sense, right? Because you
No, it
start,
does not.
yeah. So this, again, is just kind of a simple example of how, depending on where you put your money and how you do it, you can actually multiply what you currently have, and have it be a blessing, right, for the next generations, and making sure that they've got that protection as well. Because this 10-year-old presumably going to be in good health, they're going to qualify, they're going to have that living benefit protection and death benefit protection for life. And no matter what happens in the future, they're going to be covered, right? Whether it's something critical like a heart attack, stroke, cancer, or if it's something like a disability, right? Severe disability, to get in a bad car wreck and they can't work for a year or two. Well, this would be a nice fallback option for them. So that's all I got for today,
I have one
Rusty.
question for you.
Yeah.
So, what I want you to do before we put a bow on today's show is you've been an estate planner for how long, Joe?
About 5 years now.
Okay, so in those 5 years, have you ever heard a horror story? Like, I mean, or witnessed one where there was just a really bad situation where the cheap came out super expensive and basically tore a family apart. Can you share an example where poor planning cost a family way more than it should have?
Yeah, look, there are so many stories out there.
Just give me one.
What I can tell you is, when it gets to, it's kind of like it's really hard for us to help someone once the fires really burn down the house, right?
Right. Yes.
It's like and at that point, it's like, look, um, that goes to the attorneys. And again, just 100%, I think I mentioned this earlier. I am not an attorney, and that's fine because we have a team full of very well-trained attorneys that can, help everyone answer their legal questions, right? Our goal is to really ask questions so we can make people think, think of us as kind of the general contractor where we're going to put people in front of the right specialists that need
Correct. Yep.
to help them with whatever the job requires. When it comes to horror stories, gosh, I mean, I'm thinking back, when those horror stories get to us, unfortunately, there's very little that we can do, and at that point, we're typically sending them out for like a legal referral, where now they're going to have to start spending serious legal dollars to get out of whatever situation that they're in. But again, it's one of those situations where um, if you don't have a plan and it's too late, what I'll tell you is I do have a story where procrastination, right? Someone decided to kind of put things off. And I won't forget this. Monday morning, I get this phone call from a client that we met maybe less than a year ago. She says to me, "Hey, I know we talked about the estate plan. I know that I've been thinking about it, right? They always say sometimes I want to think about it.
Yep.
I'm scheduled to have brain surgery, and I'm really concerned that I'm not sure which way it's going to turn out. Can you help me? I'm getting brain surgery done in like 2 days. So there is no attorney on this planet that can pull together a book plan in 2 days, right? But
Right.
because we have a digital solution, and again, kudos to our team who rallied behind her, and we, just had to get everyone, because normally it's typically a 3 to 4 week process, right? Where we're kind of back and forth gathering information. We did it in about 24 hours. We got her set up, got her documents, got the legal deed and all that, right? The title, funded it, and it was all done. And she had that peace of mind knowing that entering into surgery, shouldn't have to worry about it. Okay, so that's an extreme case when someone kind of put things off, but we're still there to kind of catch it, right? Just to provide that, and it's actually a happy ending, right? Our client went through surgery and she survived it, and she's still alive today. So,
Good.
sometimes it takes a little, something in life to kind of light that fire underneath you, right, Rusty?
That's usually how most people are motivated is until something happens either to them or to somebody close to them, whether it be death or, health changes or, seeing and witnessing a family have to
Yeah.
go through something horrible. It's that emotion. And that emotion is what really drives people to take the appropriate action. But if you don't take that appropriate action right away when your emotions and your interests are all time high, then procrastination sets in and it's just easy to defer, 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 defer more times than not until it's too late. So, Joe, give us a plug. I'm watching the show and I really like some Joe too. And I would like to reach out to you and see what you can do to help me with my estate planning. Are these the deets that we're looking at here in order to
Yeah,
get?
yeah. This is so again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times estate planning attorneys, they're going to charge you upfront for initial consultation on an hourly basis. We don't do that. Our goal is to just share information, make sure that you've got the right information to make the right decisions for your family. And I will tell you, Rusty, there are times when I've got clients literally walking into our office and saying, and almost demanding, I need to get this trust set up. And after we go through the intake and we actually tell them, you know what, you actually don't need a trust, but this is what we can do for you. And here, why don't you save the money that you've saved here? We're going to put it somewhere else for you. So if you don't need a trust or you don't need what you think you might need, we're going to tell you that as well.
That is
And I can't
awesome.
tell you how many times that's happened. So the point is, you don't know what you don't know, but that's why we're here. And that's why I wanted to join this podcast because there's just so many people that are kind of confused about this whole mysterious topic of estate planning. And it doesn't have to be that way. And part of the reason why it is because everyone is stuck with those passive book trusts, right? Dealing with these attorneys, these high paid attorneys. And they just feel really lost and they don't feel like they're in control, right? Well, now we're putting that control back into everyone's hands with this digital estate plan solution.
That is wonderful. 214-506-0520. Give Mr. Two a text. You can visit his website, prosperityalliancepartners.com. You can also drop him an email at joe@prosperityalliancepartners.com as well. Joe, I'm going to tell you, on behalf of the audience here, it's been an incredibly eye-opening conversation. Estate planning isn't just about documents and legal jargon. It's about protecting what you've worked for, and avoiding unnecessary cost, and making sure your family is truly taken care of. For those who are listening, whether you're watching this live or you're catching this on the replay, don't wait until it's too late. Just as Joe was, putting a bow on it, talking about this form of procrastination, start the conversation, take the first step, and put a plan in place that gives you and your loved ones peace of mind. If you got value from today's show, you learned something from it, I ask that you please smash button, hit that like button, subscribe, and then make sure that you share this to all your friends and family, and do not keep this Financial Happy Hour podcast a secret. Joe, I want to thank you for joining us today and for helping us demystify estate planning. See how I continue to lace that in? Demystify estate planning. And everyone tuning in, again, thank you for spending your time with us here on the Financial Happy Hour podcast. Until next time, cheers to your financial freedom and to your peace of mind. And Joe, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Rusty. It's been a pleasure. Lots of fun.